Alright, so this next part is probably the most challenging part. Is I installed a hydraulic slave cylinder with the clutch line all the way off. So I disconnected the line here on that bottom one, and I crimped this with some crimpers, and I didn't put it on tight enough. So the whole time I had the clutch line off, it had been leaking. So I kind of made a little bit of spill of brake fluid everywhere. I managed to catch it before it hit the minimum line, which is right here. So I caught it beforehand, quickly filled it up, and then what I ended up having to do is I just took the old hydraulic slave cylinder, took the line off of it, then it took a clear hose, which I used to bleed the brakes, or bleed the master brake cylinder before, and I threw the clear line on that. And I did that to pretty much stop it from leaking everywhere. I put down the wrong, damn it. So I did that, stopped the leak, which I messed up, and it worked actually fairly well. So I might use something like that from now on if I ever have to do it and the crimp isn't on all the way. Clean up this mess over here. So yeah, there's a little bit of brake fluid everywhere right now. It really sucks, but I'll clean it up once I'm done here. Just something to be wary of. Make sure you actually close or crimp the brake fluid line tight, where it won't just slowly leak out without you noticing. So after that, once I got the transmission high enough to get in there so it's not bolted up, this high enough to reconnect the clutch line, so I reconnected that, and then I have enough clearance under here to reach the slave cylinder, and then by hand pull it back, and then if you connect it properly you'll hear bubbles coming out of the reservoir, but you'll push it back, pull the air out of there, and you just do that. I think I did maybe like 5 times, and you're start to feel more and more resistance. So you're taking all the air out of the reservoir, or I mean the slave cylinder. And then once it's giving you a lot of resistance, then you can just leave it as is, and then you'll just use the clutch pedal to bleed the hydraulic slave cylinder after it's been installed. But for now, should be good to go. Continue raising it up. I think I have one plug in the back there I still need to plug in, but the other 2 plugs are already plugged in, ready to go. So I should be able to get this in here in the next hour or 2, and hopefully get it all back together. Fill it with fluid, put the drive shaft back in, put the exhaust back on, and then be ready to go. Alright guys, next day here. Getting the transmission back on was actually a pretty big pain. So we got it to align for the most part, but trying to push it in the rest of the way was damn near almost impossible. So what I ended up having to do is I had to run to the store and buy longer bolts. I kind of used those bolts to line up the transmission, so it was lined up as best as possible, but where I got it to, the bolts wouldn't go on right. So I had to improvise and use longer bolts to kind of line it up, and then just tighten down the bolts incrementally until it got pretty much all the way on. So I used these longer bolts. These are the ones that were on it. I replaced them with newer ones. I didn't put thread locker on them yet. I'm gonna do that once all the bolts have been put on. I still need to get the 2 on top on there, tighten them down, and then one by one I'll take one out, put some thread locker on it, and then throw it back on. That way I can make sure it's all good to go. It's perfectly seated before I go on and put some thread locker in there. So we can see down here, all bolted in, except for those 2 top bolts. But yeah, pretty much all bolted in, ready to go. I just need to find, I don't know where the nut for this side went. Gotta figure out where all that stuff was. Somewhere over here. Throw this back on, tighten this back down. Cross brace, I already put the cross brace on there because I ended up swapping how the jack was on it, so we can kind of like get a little bit more room to work with over here. So I just need to raise that up and bolt it up to the frame. Clutch line, everything's already hooked up. I pumped the clutch line a little bit, and that's also another thing I did to kind of help slide it in. It's like the more and more we got on, I just pumped the clutch. That way, if the clutch itself was slightly off, whenever you pump the clutch pedal, it kind of releases the pressure from the pressure plate, and then the clutch can move freely. So that way, if it's slightly off, then you'll be able to slide it on the rest of the way. After I did that a few times, just went around continuously tightening down each bolt little by little to get more and more, or slide it in more and more, and to the point where it kind of just started to slip on, and it basically made it with surface. They're hand tight right now until I can get the two top ones on there, and then once I got those on there, then I'll start putting their locker on all of them. From there, fill it with fluid, throw the drive shaft back on. I think I'm just gonna leave the exhaust off right now. Except, actually, I'll probably just throw on the mid pipe. That wouldn't take too long. Just throw that on there. Throw the intake back on. I wanted to throw this one on, which I still might. I'm just gonna look into see if I need to replace the seals for the fuel injectors. If you're swapping it to another one, if you are, I'm just gonna order new seals, put them on this, and then when I get a chance, I'll take it off again and swap them over. But I'll just throw the intake back on, put the battery back in, put the mid pipe back on, the H pipe, and then start her up. I'll probably crank it without it starting first. I'll probably remove the fuel pump relay and then try cranking it, see if it rotates without basically binding or anything like that. So hopefully that's all good to go. And then yeah, we'll go from there. Once I know that's all good to go, I'll drop in the first and slow release clutch while it's in the air and see if the wheels spin, and then hopefully no issues there. Once that's all good, throw it all back on, put the wheels back on, and then take her out for a quick test drive. Hopefully she rides smooth, better clutch, better flywheel, all of that's good to go. New slave cylinder, so hopefully she drives a lot better. The next thing is definitely going to be fixing these brakes. I think I'm just gonna end up buying new brakes. I've been finagling with these so much back and forth. It'd probably just be a good idea to just replace them. I did buy the little slide pins, so I got new slide pins here for the front. I also have some from the back, and I'm gonna be replacing those. They also came with the boot, so that was a big thing. Is the boots are probably all deteriorated, so I'm gonna be taking these off. I have to clean the inside of this completely thoroughly out, so I'm probably gonna spray it with brake clean, make sure it's completely clean in there, and then put a small coating of Sil Glide in there, and then throw this on. Hopefully it gets rid of that like popping, kind of like clicking sound I get whenever I'm pushing the brakes. Alright, got the transmission bolted up, put the exhaust all back on. I swapped out these clamps because I broke these, taking them off because I broke the stud on it when I was trying to take it off the other car. So I swapped those out. I actually bolted this upside down, so if you're gonna remove this and put it back on, make sure you annotate which way it goes which, because there is an angle for this to go. If you put it on upside down, then it's too high up on the chassis and it won't bolt up properly. So all of this is all bolted up, ready to go. I put some thread locker in the bolts for the transmission to the bell housing. I tightened down the bolts to that brace right there. Reinstalled the drive shaft, tightened down the bolts on the back to the diff. The only thing really left to do is to fill the transmission with fluid. So I'm filling it with STP ATF multi-purpose, and that's because if you look down here, it says use Dextron 3. Right there, mix Dextron 3 as specified, because these use the multi-purpose or like all vehicle ATF as opposed to like Dex 4 or like whatever other Dex 5 there is. So make sure you use the right fluid for the Tremix transmissions. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up with fluid. After that, I gotta go back and install the intake that I took off to kind of like help with removing the transmission initially. So I'll put the intake on. I probably won't book the shift boot, or I mean the lever and the like the center portion of the console, like the top portion on yet, just so if there's anything else I need to do, I don't have to retake that all off. So that'll probably just be on there as that, and then just start her up and see how she rides. Obviously I'm not gonna move it first. I'm gonna do it on the lift, or I guess on the jacks, and then if I hear any weird noises or I hear something go wrong, it's already on the lift. I can hopefully figure out what broke before taking it on the road. So hopefully all goes well. Just gonna fill up with fluid and then throw everything else back in, start her up, see how she feels. Kind of like just throw in the first gear and try to roll it, throw in the reverse, try to roll it up on the lift, and hopefully all goes well. Alright, let's get it. Alright, fill the transmission with fluid. So that's good to go. Now just gonna throw on the intake. So whenever you are like removing the fuel injectors, you are supposed to replace the O-rings. At least that's recommended. I don't have the O-rings for it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and reinstall the original. I'll install this one later when I get the new O-rings. For right now, I just want to make sure everything else is good with the transmission before we're going on, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright guys, intake's back on, all bolted up, everything's properly secured, fuel lines all reconnected, all the vacuum lines are all reconnected. The only thing that's not reconnected yet is this back here. That's because I'll be swapping that out with this Ford Performance oil separator. So I just went with this one because I thought it would look a little bit better. No real difference other than it's slightly bigger than all the other ones, so it'll be able to hold a little bit more before you need to open it up and empty it out. Alright, and you got your hoses, which I don't know which hose goes where, so I'm sure we'll figure it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and install that somehow. Alright, so I'm guessing that goes there, that goes here, maybe. That looks close. I'll look at the pictures to make sure, but yeah, I think that's how it goes on there. And I'm guessing this bolts on to here. Oh geez, I just noticed this is broken. Well, that's cool. I could probably just glue it back on. So much for a clean look. I'll figure it out. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and install this, and then I have the fuel pump relay over here removed, actually right here, and that's just because I want to crank the engine. I don't want it to start, I just want to crank it to make sure it rotates freely and doesn't sound like anything's binding up, stuff like that. So hopefully all is good. Once I get this installed, go ahead and crank it up, or hook up the battery and crank it up, and hopefully all of it goes well. Alright, got the oil separator installed, looking good. That piece I had to take off, or that piece that was broken off, does kind of interfere with it a little bit, so it doesn't actually sit properly, which kind of sucks. So it does wobble. So at some point I'm gonna have to take this off and try to glue that back on, and hopefully it stays better. But it's on there, it's not really gonna go anywhere, hopefully. So that should be good there. I'm gonna go ahead, reconnect the battery. Pretty sure the keys are inside. Yep, keys are in here. It should be ready to crank. Fingers crossed everything's good. Alright, moment of truth. Clutch in, it's in neutral. Fuel pump didn't kick on, so I'm gonna crank it for a second and see what happens. Alright. It's definitely spinning, so that's good. So now let's go put the fuel pump relay back on and then test it out again. Alright, here we go. Fuel pump relay's on. Heard it kick on. Hopefully I don't get the check engine light for the crankshaft. So let's try it out. Alright. Good so far. Checking my connections. Probably have exhaust leak somewhere. I'm sure I'll find it afterwards. For now, sounds good in there. Good. Smell a little bit burning. That's probably fine. It's all connected, good to go. Let's check to see if I got any check engine lights yet. I have not. I also apparently I had the an Evap sensor unplugged underneath, which might have been my fault. I didn't check to see if it was plugged in, so that probably was the reason why I kept getting check engine light for high evap pressure. So hopefully I don't get any more check engine lights from that. I'm gonna let it warm up, get idle speeds, and then I'm gonna throw it in first and slowly roll it, see how it feels, and then do it in reverse as well. Sounds good. You can't really hear anything in there from now. I think it's in neutral, so we'll see here in a bit. Battery's about to die on the camera, so I'm just gonna do that real quick off camera and let you guys know how it goes. Alright, so skipping forward a lot. I don't remember where I left off, but so this is the next morning here. Got everything back in, got it all bolted up, got the transmission in finally, bolted it down, put some thread locker in those bolts, make sure those don't come off, put the drive shaft in, hooked it all up, tightened down the drive shaft, threw the exhaust on, bolted up the exhaust and tightened it down. The mid clamps, for whatever reason, you have to tighten those really good. So I think that's the only spot where there might be an exhaust leak still. So I gotta go in there and probably tighten it more if there is still anything. Refill the reservoir for the brake fluid, pump the clutch a whole bunch of times, feels firm, feels good. When I had it up on the jacks, I put in the first gear, let it roll a little bit, and I put it in reverse, let it roll backwards. Felt good. Starts up actually a lot quicker now because of the flywheel. It's a lot less rotational mass, so it actually cranks quicker, so it starts faster. And also, oh, almost fell. Also just feels better. And the oil separator that I installed too, it definitely, you can definitely smell it right away. You don't have like that kind of like slight bit of oil smell in it. For those of you who drive Mustangs with the Coyote engine, you kind of know what that smell is like. And then when you have the oil separator on, it gets rid of that. 'Cause instead of getting all the oil going straight back into the intake, that gets caught in that oil separator. So helps filter the air going to the engine a little bit better, so you're not just burning oil with the engine. As far as I can tell, the rear main seal is good. Haven't really seen any oil on the floor. I won't know until I actually go take it out and drive. So first things first, gotta record how many miles are currently on the car. And from there, we're gonna go ahead, let's clear that, that's not important. Oh, come on, there we go. So we're at, let's put that one, 41,654 miles, so about 42 and 150 miles will be about the 500 miles break-in. I gotta go in there and also fill up all these tires because I'm pretty sure a lot of these tires are low. So before I go take it out and drive, I'm gonna fill up the tires, make sure they're good, filled with air, ready to go. I reinstall everything in here. Really simple, not that difficult. So we're gonna go ahead, do that, and then we're gonna go take her for a spin.